we're doing it now.
Right.
All right, let's real quick. We'll talk about Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff because we all saw it, and this is a spoiler review in a way. One thing, I mean, I was surprised. I was going into it expecting to cry a lot more, and you cried several times during this, Robert. So did you do a cry count? What was your total? How many times you actually had? 4? Yeah. So I walked out of there not only disappointed I didn't cry, I walked out of there questioning my empathy and the kind of person I am. I'm like, am I terrible self? Am I everything my ex is telling me I am right now? Because I did not cry as much as I cried. What about you? What was the cry count for you, Todd?
I didn't cry at all. My theater was just incredibly dusty.
That makes sense. Okay. So you just had something in his eyes. Okay, yeah. So manly,
really,
Todd
really
Marlie.
dusty in there. I don't know what.
Powers,
allergy
what was
season, you know?
Yes. I didn't shed a tear. I got choked up twice.
Okay.
So super choked up twice.
All right, yeah. So both of us have a zero empathy.
Well, no, I think it's because of I had the expectations of like, all right.
True.
It's gonna be a cry fest.
Yeah. If they didn't do that, then I probably would have maybe gotten caught.
Yes.
But I don't know. No, I just got choked up because I like dad stuff. So the thing with Drax got me choked up at a point.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
Yeah, and me too. But I'll say this as well. Speaking of Drax, they did a great job swerving because you go in with all the press leading up to this movie and Dave Bautista talking, everything else. You expected major characters to die in this movie, and in a way you're disappointed, but in a way you're relieved. But I thought that was the biggest swerve of all. Right? We did not get that. Right.
I would argue the biggest swerve would be how James Gunn mid-movie announced how little he liked having to be involved with the larger MCU storyline. He said fantastic.
Explain that mid-movie.
Hold on. What?
That elevator scene
with Quinn.
With Peter. With Quill going down and him just absolutely going off about the Infinity Stones and Gamora dying and coming back and doing all that. That is James Gunn just loudly announcing to the world, like, yeah, they kind of forced this MCU stuff on me, but I still made a good movie.
Yeah, but I mean, James Gunn knew what he was getting into when you're jumping into a universe like this. So it's not like James Gunn didn't know he was going to have to, calibrate when it came to coming in after big tentpole level events. I mean, the man is going to be orchestrating the tentpole level events now over in DC. So I think it was more so he was just like joking about it, but I don't feel like he's got any animosity what they did to his characters, because in my opinion, I think it worked out best for the Guardians to do what they did with the characters. So it ended up being Quill that ended up almost causing the apocalypse. Somebody had to cause the apocalypse, so why not Peter Quill? And he had a pretty good reason to do it. He lost his mind and decided to beat up on Thanos, who was under suppression of Mantis, and that ended up setting him free to kill half the universe. So it had to happen, and I like the way they did it organically, and I like that James Gunn came out of it organically. What I found hilarious was how after the fact, James Gunn was doing just a press conversation with somebody, and it was him and Chris Pratt, and he was joking and laughing about how he created the entire lore of the MCU's version of the Infinity Stones in like an hour and a half. Like for him, he created, and they built the whole universe off of just something that he spent an hour and a half doing and just slapped it together the way he portrays it. He even calls it bullshit. He's like, I just put some bullshit down for an hour and a half, and that's what they built their whole MCU on. So he thought it was funny. And it's a great interview, and you can see Chris Pratt like, ha 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 ha. But James Gunn doesn't care.
He's like, I'm still cashing those Marvel checks, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, there's still a possibility for future cameos. Knock it off.
Well, 100%.
Especially for Chris Pratt. If you saw the end, if you watched after the credits, it's looking like there's going to be more Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. So
damn it,
they ended up speculation.
Yeah, there's speculation that he'll be in the Avengers movie, and because he's on Earth at the end.
That's I don't like Star-Lord.
All right, well, it's okay. So here, I'm going to go around with our expert nerd table here that we have, and we'll start. I need a spoiler high, spoiler low for Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's start off with Powers, work our way around.
Wait, I don't know what that means.
Oh, like what is the high point of the movie that you enjoyed the most, and what was the low that you were kind of like, if you had a low?
Okay.
Okay.
So the high point for me, and if I was a nerdier guy, I would change if this was a few years ago, I would change my Facebook cover photo to be that version of heaven that Rocket sees with Teefs waving.
Yeah, we were cracking up about Teefs who couldn't get closer, who just kept doing, "Hi, I'm over here. It's Teefs. I know I got wheels, but they're stuck. That's Teefs way in the back."
Like,
so that was high.
That
Okay.
was, to me, amazing. I love Marvel Heaven. There's a lot of versions of Marvel Heaven, one with a giant talking hippopotamus as well.
Yeah.
Marvel Heaven's amazing. All right. Lowest stuff? I don't know. Let's see. I'm supposed to pick a low thing?
Yeah, just something where you're like, it could have went without.
I'm not sure. Some of it's hard to get emotionally invested in the animal characters.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, like that being the tearjerker, it being Rocket's story.
Yeah.
A little harder for me to care about, maybe. I don't know.
All right, fair enough. All right, Todd, same question. You're smoking a joint, so I know you're thinking about.
I enjoyed Rocket being the center of attention and seeing that story and letting it explain little beats and why he wanted to, it would explain why he wanted arms. One of his main love interests needed arms. Why would he want to steal an arm all the time?
Look at that.
Little cutbacks like that really made it interesting. For my negatives, I only had two things that I did not like about the movie. I thought it was the weakest soundtrack of the three. Whether that might be a matter of opinion, I do think it was the weakest soundtrack of the three. And then the at the end, Groot saying something other than "I am Groot," ejected me out of my immersion entirely, and I immediately was angry at the movie.
Well, you do know that's because we're part of the family now, and we can understand Groot, right? So
is that what it was? Because
we're part of the family. We're part of the family at the end of the movie. So now we and everybody else, and they set it up with Gamora throughout the whole movie, is that she can't hear it. She just hears "I am Groot, I am Groot, I am Groot" until the very end. And then Gamora can now understand Groot because we're part of the family. So we get to the end of the movie. Now we can understand what Groot is saying by what he said with the "I love you guys." Everyone else just heard "I am Groot."
You just made me appreciate that, Robert. Yeah, exactly. Expert. All right. So
now to be really nerdy about that takes everything about Thor and Thor's existence in there when he was like, I took a bit of Grootish in college or whatever he said and knew how to understand it when he definitely wasn't family.
Hey man, hey! When you watch Arrival, when you start learning other languages and other ways people communicate, your brain gets rewired to the point where you start thinking like them. So because he was able to understand how Groots operate, he can already understand how Groot talks.
Bypass it.
He's automatically in the family, man. He's been invited to the cookout when it comes to the Groots.
Look at all that circumnavigation nerd.
Yes, that's a debate for another time. So back to the question here, Robert, for your high and your low, if you have one.
One thing, didn't the animals grow back their parts when they were in heaven? Why did they still have to be all messed up with the different little parts? That's one thing that I just thought the second time I watched it. Chikwudi Iwuji, who played the High Evolutionary, I thought he was amazing as a villain. I loved him on Peacemaker. I loved him here. Some people were saying, he yelled too much. The dude's insane. He's got to yell, and he does a damn good job at it. But just in terms of villainy, that's one thing that it tears me up about the Marvel universe. Is like they just cast these. Well, it's not so much the casting, but the execution of the villains, and then they kill the villains at the end, which they didn't do here. And I just, I don't like what they've done with villainy in the MCU. And I thought that this was a dastardly a-hole that deserved all the hate that he was getting. To me, at times, felt worse than what Thanos did because of the torture of the animals and what he was doing, and had no care. He was indifferent. He didn't give a crap about them. They were just, things to him that he can operate on and try and perfect society, which a lot of humanity does in reality, in real life when it comes to, testing on animals just for makeup and all that. It's terrible, the things that the animals have to go through. So I thought they did a good job at kind of that as a villain in the MCU. Things I didn't like, where the hell was Star-Lord's helmet and jet boots? Like, they're gone.
They just 86'd them.
the entire movie just so they can have the moment at the end of the movie with him that takes place. Just so they can give you that, oh my God, Star-Lord ain't gonna make it. It's like they just got rid of him the whole time just so you can have that moment of peril where there's no saving Star-Lord. Because if he had his helmet and his jet boots, he'd be fine. But there were so many moments that he could have used it, and they weren't there. Not at any point throughout the movie.
His helmet broke in something in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but then they brought it back in Endgame, which was outside of what James Gunn wanted. So James Gunn kind of ignored that. According to Twitter, James Gunn said Star-Lord just left him in his room. Sure. Didn't have time to go get him.
Makes sense. But the thing is, they're nanotechnology. It's not like he has to take them off. So
yeah, dude. Yeah, it's like literally having like an earpiece or Bluetooth, you just keep it on, bro. If it's gonna say you're in space, you're probably gonna need it eventually.
And
right?
they even could have come to the same resolution at the end of the movie, because with the high evolutionary check them for weapons, he could have turned that stuff over there and then not have it for the last portion of the movie. But it was weird that somebody who was so iconic visually with the plasma rifle, the energy rifle, and then the helmet and the jet boots, like it's all gone. And it's just Chris Pratt, going and doing his running and gunning. So I don't know. I kind of miss it because I thought that was a cool aspect of Star-Lord, and it's a big aspect in the comics, and it's a great part of the video game. If you never played the Guardians of the Galaxy game,
I love the video game. Played it all the way to completion, and absolutely, and that brings my point and my low as well, because there is some parts of this movie that does seem lazy in concept. And James Gunn is brilliant creatively, but when you're talking about that was something that was grossly overlooked with the helmet and stuff. And there was definitely many different examples that you just laid out very clearly that they could have incorporated or addressed it so they could still have that climatic scene at the end. And the writing of Groot, which I was making a joke to Powers, is essentially they make him the Swiss Army knife man. And so in any situation, you could just be like, oh, guess what? And Groot can do this, and Groot can do that, and Groot can whatever, right? And so to me, I just feel like that's a little lazy, because it's like whenever you write yourself into a corner to be able to be like, I got this mystical creature, I can do whatever the fuck I want, right? Seems a little lazy, right? But then the upside, and then my other downside is nobody died. Because I did want to see some extra closure on that if we're never going to see some of these characters again, namely Batista's Drax, right? But I guess it's good that he didn't die, but somebody else could have. Like kill somebody. But the comedy of the story, making it in retrospect a Rocket's story for all three makes me want to go back and watch all three again and appreciate a little bit more. Listening to James Gunn after he was pitched to take on this Guardians of the Galaxy project, not necessarily being excited about it at first, and driving home and on his way home, understanding and realizing that the origin story of Rocket can be so tragic and sad, and that's what inspired him to take on this project and create this, made me appreciate that more. So the overall arc, I think all three will kind of hold up and be one of my favorite trilogies in the running. So that's the positive on mine. But then the lazy escapes is something that's like, you see these superhero movies do this all the time, and if Marvel wants to right the ship and DC wants to right the ship going forward with all these phases and try to overcome superhero fatigue and all that, they're going to have to recognize that they can't just bullshit their way out of something they write themselves into. There's got to be a real logical explanation and escape, as opposed to, oh yeah, now he could magically fart on you and you turn into a tree.
Right. All right, that's always been my complaint with like these clever writers, where it's like all these great storylines and then they write themselves into a corner and they can't get out.
Yeah.
The only show I do not care that does it is Doctor Who. I'm like, listen, bring back River Song as many times as you can. I don't care how you do it. That is the only show that I will be like, you know what? I'll allow it because I want to see that character again. But everywhere else, I'm like, figure it out.
It's a time travel. All
right.
All right.
Well, paradox.
It's a time of travel.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys. We gotta get out of here and get back to our responsibility. But I appreciate y'all for doing the show as always. And you guys have a good weekend. I'll catch you on the flip side. All right. Everyone
everybody.
watching the stream, same deal. So thank you. Don't forget, if you watch this all the way through, that you're insane, and I appreciate you. So make sure that you subscribe while you're at it. Later.